Hello, welcome to the channel and welcome to another LSB film podcast with me, your host, Chris with a K. I hope everyone's well. Every so often, a conversation comes along that challenges the way people look at the world around them. Now, whether you agree or disagree with the conversation that you're about to hear, the questions raised deserve to be heard. In this episode, I sit down with Ben Butler, one of the latest associated people with the Blade Runners. Ben explains what first drew his attention to the growing network of cameras, sensors, monitoring technology appearing across Britain's streets, why he began researching them, and how that research led him to become actively involved. Throughout the discussion, Ben outlines his own understanding of surveillance technology, data collection, facial recognition, radar systems, and what he believes these devices are ultimately being used for. He also recounts his own personal experiences, the actions he has taken, and the legal questions he still thinks have been unanswered. The views expressed in this interview are Ben's own and reflect his own personal interpretations, research, and experiences. The purpose of this conversation is to explore these views directly, allowing listeners to hear the full argument in full and reach their own conclusions. With that said, let's get straight into it.
Are you concerned about all this corruption being rebranded as conspiracy theory? Well, don't you worry. Sit back and relax and join in the conversation with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
So yes, there's a lot to talk about. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Hello everybody. My name's Ben Butler. Recent addition to the blade running team around the UK. Here to waffle on about my story and real call to action. I think what's been proven by me and the lads, lads and ladies, everybody involved is really worthy news of getting out there, and that's what I'm here to do.
Sounds like a plan, Stan.
Yeah.
So, first of all, then, what brought your attention to the Blade Runners?
I mean, to me personally, obviously for some people this stuff is obvious and for others it's not. Yeah. And for me personally, all of the data that's being grabbed in our lives is quite clearly an overreach. It's not just the phones and the microphones and cameras that you see everywhere, but then you see the more covert stuff as well. And I can see why people don't see it. They're busy with their lives and they think that the government trusts them inherently. But for me, I've always had my kind of eyes open and my feelers out to this stuff. What's that for? What's that little device? And so on.
Inquisitive.
Yeah, that's it. Just inquisitive about everything. And in the last couple of decades, I've seen, bits of hardware pop up on the streets and whatever, that they're obviously counting cars and data and whatever. But the question is, and the reason why GDPR rules exist is, where's that information going and how is it being used? And, what's the point B? If we're at point A and they're heading to point B, where's it going? Right. And so what looks like a harmless camera to someone who doesn't care, to me, I'll look into it and then suddenly it looks less like a harmless camera, you see. So I wasn't necessarily inspired by the Blade Runners alone. I had my own sort of background to all this. But then seeing what was happening in London, obviously with the ULEZ, I was like, being in Cambridge, which is not far off Greater London, it's an hour drive to what they would call Greater London. I'm sitting there like, right, well, it's only a matter of time before that city swells into my area. And, let's just keep a finger on the pulse and see what's happening with them on the border, in Hillingdon and whatever. And, if it ever encroaches on my personal space, then, something's going to have to be done. And for many years, it's been like just looking at the ULEZ until all sorts of stuff started coming around, like all of these little devices. Everybody's seen them now, I think,
Mm.
except for the hugely cognitively dissonant. But yeah, the same questions that I just sort of posed exist. Where's the information going? What's it for? Why do they need to have sensors that work on like a nano and mesoscopic scale? You know, back in the day, if it was just car counting with those rubber bands over the roads, you'd still have me in the camp of like, okay, everything's cool.
Mm.
They're just counting cars, they're getting some data and they're doing something with it. But when it comes to pointed at humans and on the kind of wavelengths that can measure, the kinds of frequencies that the human body and brain gives off, then I'm not just going to start asking questions. Like
So what
it
do they say?
already,
They just say that it's for facial recognition,
yeah.
and that's why it's pointing at the human. What else do they? What do they give the reasoning for nano stuff, or don't they?
Well, I mean, the thing is, you never get to that point with them.
Okay.
There's so many stone walls that are in the way, and this is what I've found in my own journey, right? Like they they just dismiss, outright ignore. It's got Operation Tallow written all over it,
Mm.
like the I wouldn't be surprised if it actually links in with Operation Tallow and is the same thing, because obviously this is one large weapon, with the chips that have been found to be emitting MAC addresses in people's arms. This is a recognition system, and then when we've got sensors which can sense those things and, triangulate MAC addresses from phones and identify people by face, this is many different data points to identify targets,
Mm.
and that's like a whole lot different to how many pedestrians are there waiting to cross the road. Like in,
All I can say is I think the more I hear about what goes on, that Aldous Huxley, Brave New World, underplayed it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah, I mean, on the run up to this, it's been like, was it an instruction manual? Was it fiction? Whatever. Now it's, as you say, it's like, oh, it was child's play,
Mm.
So, I mean, the big they, won't go too
They
much into
having
that.
enslaved us. Oh no,
Yeah.
sorry. Was it those having enslaved you? They.
Ah,
That's
nice.
they.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good one. I'll remember that. Yeah, the big they, they must have had a proper wet dream over all this stuff, like, oh, I'm ready, let's get this out there,
Mm.
and for the most part didn't didn't think that they were going to get caught because they're that stupid, or they thought, we're going to succeed to some extent before people work it out, right? And with the ULEZ stuff, the legal side of things is really kind of what I want to focus on here, because you see those videos of people like openly, and these people are doxxed on the internet. Their names are out there, their faces are out there, your Matt Houstons and whatever. And they're openly going and, doing all this stuff. And to anybody that has a few brain cells to think, the next question is like, how is he on Facebook talking? Like, he should be in prison without a phone. He's doing lives and whatever. And you're like, this doesn't add up. Or, if you've got let's say, a conspiracy mindset, it adds up perfectly,
Mm.
So basically, seeing this encroachment of technology on my local area and whatever eventually, and being like, right, well, I'm now getting radiated when I'm walking over the crossroads with my dog, you know, I'm seeing schools with all of this technology. Just to add on the previous note, if they're sensors, if we just steel man that argument for a second, let's say they're sensors, why do you need eight of them on a junction? Like they're pointing in every direction, they're pointing at school kids one way and cars and bikes the other, and you've got two usually facing each other into the middle of the road. And you're just like, even if they were sensors, it would be questionable, you know.
It's to
So
cover all the blind spots.
yeah,
Who
yeah,
knows?
that's it. I mean, yeah, it depends what you're doing in the non-blind spots, really. Is it just sensing, or are you making sure that you've got your target in range?
Now, before we get back into our show, a quick word from our sponsors. If you've ever had that unexpected knock at the door from police, a visit from bailiffs, or received a legal threat without warning, you'll know just how quickly confusion and fear can set in, and that's where Willoughby Genius Mark II comes in. Built on more than 750,000 legal entries and across 50 plus countries, it provides immediate legal guidance when you need answers fast. No waiting for appointments, no eye-watering hourly fees. Just direct access to the relevant legal information right when you need it. It helps to verify information, explains your options, guides you through legal situations with clarity and precision. Legal technology is evolving rapidly, and those who understand it will be better equipped. Now, before we jump back into the show, click in the link below, use LSB Pro for £5 off of your first month's premium. Right, let's get back into it.
A lot of these devices, by the way, do have gun sights, as you would find on guns in the molding, the plastic molding. And the installation instructions is basically, aim those gun sights so the pedestrians are in the box, you know, and that points to something, Obviously, you would do that with
A
a sensor,
target,
but yeah,
usually.
targets, exactly.
Mm.
That's it. And so yeah, I mean, when I saw this new stuff coming out, the new stuff, I mean, AGD systems, if anyone wants to look into it, AGD-systems, I think .co.uk. You go on products page, you'll see loads of red products. And I started to see it all come up around my area. And of course, go and do some research. Like Jimmy Dore says, that thing called reading, it's not just some new thing that conspiracy theorists do. It's what people do.
Hmm.
So you go out and you educate yourself, and you're like, okay, it's radar. It's pointed straight at humans, and that never occurs normally. You don't do that, right? Strict, in the military, it's this stuff's usually under lock and key radar, and it's usually by authorized personnel, and it has to be clocked in and clocked out, and so on.
Is
You
there a
don't.
similarity between radar and laser?
Um, in a sense, yeah. There's LiDAR as well, which is more on light detection.
Okay.
Um, so the similarity between radar and laser is that this particular kind of radar, phased array, it's beam forming. So you can focus the beam and you can track targets, even though the unit itself is still. It's got a, an
A
array
moving
of
head.
no moving head.
No
Yeah,
moving head.
no moving head, exactly. And the way that it happens is you've got an array of antennas. And basically, these antennas all fire the same wave, the same frequency, but in or out of phase. So there's a computer behind this hardware, which basically, when it's sensing, it can sense that somebody is, over there within the range by how the waves come back to the unit, and then the
Okay.
computer
Mm.
computes it and shows, okay, there's a person there, and it does the same thing when transmitting too. So if it's found a target is there, it can form the beam to focus it at that person or object while they're moving, right?
Okay.
So this then poses a whole load of other questions, right? It can actually identify multiple targets, and also track them at the same time. So again, just a sensor, well, that points to absolutely not,
Mm.
right? And then you've got five or six of them on every junction, on many crossings, there's even five or six. And literally just pointed at bare cyclists, they don't have any protection or whatever. At least in your car, you've got a windscreen and a metal box around you. Um, Sorry, I was answering your question about laser. So the beam forming capabilities is similar to how laser works. And there are if you look at the ULEZ cameras, if you pull up a picture of them in your own time, you'll see that they have diodes in them. And these are laser diodes, essentially, infrared. So the spectrum of visible light is from red to violet, the rainbow.
Hmm.
That's the very small spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can actually see. And infra means below. So below red, infrared. And that's just outside of the visible light spectrum. And then you've got ultraviolet, which means above violet. So above the visible light spectrum. And the lasers basically work in a similar way. They form a beam, but it's in a completely different part of the electromagnetic spectrum to the radar. So to answer your question,
Okay.
the similarity between the two is how they form the beam and track targets using phased array, but they're two completely different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. So, for example, this is quite a good way to explain it. These green lasers that people are talking about that are destroying flock cameras in the United States, you can get a high-powered green laser and shine it in the infrared diodes, and it will destroy the circuit boards. It will basically fry them because it's applying double the amount of electron volts that that system is designed for, just by being a different color and a higher frequency, basically. That doesn't work with radar because the radar's on a completely different part of the
Mm.
spectrum. It doesn't do anything, basically. So they have to be these kind of optical diodes for that to work. And that's kind of a good way of highlighting the difference. In the States, they have one problem with the cameras and whatever they're doing, but in the UK, as far as I've seen, the phased array radar units are everywhere. I've been driving around at least my county and a couple of others recently, and they're everywhere. So
Mm.
yeah, that's it.
Bastards.
Yeah.
Bastards.
Um, and then the amount of money that's been released by the government to do this stuff is, astonishing numbers. While they can't fix potholes on the streets, they're putting this stuff up faster than anyone could know, while everyone's sleeping, of course. No
Mm.
one ever sees the people going up and putting them up
And
there.
obviously, when we say government, we mean shadow government because this was going on during COVID
Yeah,
on the lockdowns heavily. And
yeah,
obviously, that was under Tory. And
yeah.
so, what is it? What's the old saying?
Two
Two,
wings of the same bird, or
yeah, or two cheeks of the same arse, or
yeah, yeah, that's
two
it.
faces of the same coin. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, that is definitely the best way to put it. But it's potentially, if it's two faces of the same coin, it might have even been that the coin has been taken over or swapped as well. Like this very evil heart to what we call the government these days seemingly hasn't been this way forever. Like there
Mm.
were more chilled times, let's say, where people were able to just get on with their stuff. But they seemingly are on the offensive for whatever reason. Since 2020, I think the moment that they let that pin out, when they took that pin out, it was go time. And, whether or not they were ready with certain aspects
Mm.
of the plan, they had to crack on. And that's the beauty of it, is that we're seeing it crack at the seams. They're obviously rushing many elements, and
Absolutely.
that's why it turns into a call to action. Like we need to, if we understand what's going on and your listeners understand what I'm saying, then there is only one more thing for it, which is kind of clog the system, make sure that it's not working as well as it can, taking down the weaponry, and so on. Like making a nuisance of ourselves is imperative in these times.
Mm.
It's almost a duty.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go on. You'll probably know that phrase that always forget as well. When tyranny becomes rule, finish it.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last
Um,
bit.
yeah.
Disobedience becomes something.
Duty.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Exactly. We
Mm.
strung that together somehow.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
honestly, mate,
Yeah.
my memory is shocking.
That's
It's like that of
it.
a 90-year-old. It really is. So,
Well.
What's been going on then recently? I know you've been out of trouble for the last little while, so that's always good.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
kind of what kind of trouble things have you been
Uh,
had for?
so I'll give a quick breakdown of my story from the beginning.
Mm,
Um, First time I went out to take action with these weapons, the first time that I was like, right, I've done all the thinking and research I can about this. It's time to go out there. I went up to a couple of units down the road from me, and they're sat not on a gimbal that moves, but they're sat on a hinge, which is locked into place with a bolt. So
mm,
once they've set the angle, they'll then tighten the bolt, and it will be locked in place. And I went up to this traffic pedestrian crossing, and I went up to the top, and I just yanked the thing so it was facing the sky. And I did the same with all four units on that crossing. And I was just like, right, I'm going to go home, just chill, and I'll keep an eye on it over the coming days, see how long they reset it. And of course, this tells you a couple of things. Firstly, you know, do they have a sense of whether or not the unit is working or not? Do they see a fluctuation in the data and then they can see that it's something's up and then investigate?
mm.
How on the pulse are they about their equipment? Does it come up on their system immediately? Whatever. So anyway, I yanked these things up. They're facing the sky and not hurting anybody. But within 24 hours, they were reset. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, so you can't fix the roads, but you can do this. So it's obviously telling me that this is a high priority to the government. And it's also not had any public consultation. So they're not telling anyone. They're
Mm.
doing it covertly at night,
Bit
and
like
it's
the
really,
HMO housing.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's it. So it's at night, it's covert. They haven't told anybody exactly what they're doing, and it's really important to them. And then plus, obviously, my research about how dangerous these devices are. So anyway, I go, wow, okay, on to the next thing. What am I going to do? So there were some facial recognition units which also have the radar inbuilt. They're multimodal facial recognition scanners. And I went up with some bin bags and chucked them over the top, and came to the conclusion shortly after sleeping on it that that's not doing anything anyway, because the radar actually travels through the plastic casing of the unit itself. So me putting a bin bag over the top of it, nothing. It will
But
affect,
I was gonna say
sorry.
it will stop the car or whatever from being recognized,
Yeah,
but
by
it
the
won't
camera.
stop the harm.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Mm,
even then, not necessarily, because it would stop the facial recognition camera seeing anything, but the radar is picking up on certain signatures like MAC addresses and so on. So your phone is going to be
mm,
letting off various signals, IPs, MAC addresses, low energy Bluetooth as well. And so with that bag over the top, as long as the radar can get through, it can do its job, which is, investigating who's where and what's where. So they're just losing part of that. It's not really even a triangle. They've got many more
mm.
facets to
Just a slight
identify.
inconvenience.
Exactly. And so, yeah, after sleeping on it a couple of times, I was like, the cables have to get cut. And that's obviously incriminating. Not that it would make me a criminal because they're weapons, but in the eyes of the people who are trying to cover it up, they will. I will be on their
That would
radar.
be the narrative.
Exactly. That's it. So you've got to get your head over that, and then obviously there's only one thing for it. You've got to get out and get to it. So the beauty of that one or a zero, that binary outcome of like the moment you've snipped one, in their eyes, you're needing to be arrested and investigated. So the first moment that I did that, it was like, right, well, how much impact can I make before getting picked up? It was on then, and so
The
I was,
challenge has been accepted.
yeah, exactly, and with grace as well, like yes, there's fear, occasional like, oh wow, I wonder what's going to happen, and occasional doubts, and then you're like, no, just come back to your logic and
Mm.
your research. This is 100% true. On that note, let's lean into what they're saying again. Even if this was just a surveillance system and it wasn't dangerous and carcinogenic, still that is illegal and unlawful, right? It's like it hasn't been told, there's no public consultation. And while everybody's for the last 20 years pointing over at China saying, look at how it is over there, oh my God, then it comes here and nobody bats an eyelid. So even in
Crazy,
that
isn't it?
sense, yeah, it's nuts. And like there's the bloke Sun Tzu who wrote The Art of War, like that famous old book. And I've read it, didn't make heads or tails of a lot of it, but in that it's talking of, weapons are anything that affects the enemy, you know. If you know what they had for breakfast this morning, that's a weapon, you've got more on them than they do on you.
Mm.
You can freak them out by saying, "Hey, nice. Did you enjoy a Weetabix this morning?" And you're like, "Whoa, how did you know?"
Mm.
Even
Yeah,
that's a weapon
anything can be weaponized.
for sure. So a surveillance system alone, without all of this covert weaponry, active weaponry on it, I personally know that that is also a weapon system. But the amount of cognitive dissonance I've seen through my friends, who are coming back at me saying I've got it all wrong and whatever, the amount of cognitive dissonance is like they're actually even defending the incoming of Chinese surveillance in the UK. That's how mad it really can be. So
That's because
if
they've been
you,
following the problem, reaction, solution scenario. Oh, look at the problems. Oh, you've got to do something about it.
for sure,
Ta-da!
yeah, yeah, and this is the funny thing, isn't it? In the inverted world that some of us can see, the same narrative is playing out where I've had a bunch of people say these are just sensors that you're destroying and they're there to save children's lives, right? And I'm like, they're getting disabled to save children's lives. And where have we heard this before? With
Mm.
the interventions in 2020
Yeah.
and onwards. So everybody was saying the same thing. I want to save grandma. I want to save grandma, but you're doing it by two
So
opposed
the biggest
actions.
thing that gave it away for me that it was such a con is that they were putting. Can you remember during the lockdowns they said, right, well, we're going to let the old people and we're going to let the NHS workers do their shopping first.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they put the most vulnerable in a building with the people who are constantly with people who are sick.
yeah, yeah. That's
Make that
it.
make sense?
Oh, exactly.
I was
Yeah, it's
like,
nuts, isn't it?
yeah.
When you actually think, that's when it all suddenly becomes opposed to what's seemingly going on, right?
Mm.
It's funny. On that note, just a funny little segue. I remember one of the first times that I really questioned it. I was listening to a Joe Rogan, who I don't listen to at all anymore, but whoever the guest was, he said, I realized that this was fake as soon as I washed my hands after going for a waz. I was like, fair point. Anyway. Um, but yeah, either way. So once you're aware that these things are weapons and you've taken one out and disabled it, I was certain at that point that the council and therefore the police have a system that they can see the moment that they're getting cut, right? There's
Mm.
obviously going to be, the voltage just drops out. There's no feedback on that particular
Yeah, it
part of
must
the
be a
system.
sensor or maybe like even an alarm in
Of
the
course.
control box. Like, beep, beep, beep,
Yeah,
beep. Mm.
that's it. Whether it's in the hardware or, sensors in the loop, in the circuitry, whatever. I'm aware, if they're looking at people on the nanoscale, they know when one of their units has gone out. So, that was when the hunt was on, and for quite some time, I was working every day, going out at night, and I'd be driving around in the day like that's where I'm going to do tonight. You
Mm.
know, there's one my old area or by my old school or whatever, and there's a bunch of them, and I'm like, cool. I'll set it out, come back from work, and then get on it. And some of the sessions were quite big, some not so big. But I went out most evenings. Didn't tell anyone as well. I was just going out and doing my thing. And the astonishing thing is that they were coming around almost a day behind me and removing all the units. So I was watching my work literally play out in real time, where I'd go out the next day and I'd be like, they're all gone. Whoa! I'd be in my van celebrating by myself, just like I've just,
I bet that looked rather interesting.
oh, for
In a
sure.
van on your own gun.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Exactly. And like a couple of times I've even got footage of people taking the units down, the day after I went round and whatever. And just to quickly note for the listeners as well, I'm telling you that I did it, right? So and I'm here sitting here just to let you know. But either way, I'm driving around watching people take down all the units and the same companies that put them up taking them down, and obviously the drones that are
But are they
doing.
taking them down to fix them, or are they taking them down and that's it? They're not
Well,
coming
that was
back up.
my question. Obviously, time was going to tell. And so I was just watching them do their thing. Are they fixing them and bringing them back? I mean, when you snip a cable, you can splice that thing back together. There are things that you can do to splice it back together safely. Best thing to do is actually two cuts so the cable doesn't reach. And
Mm.
then it's got to be full reinstall. You're kind of forcing that, right? But I was on an industrialization kind of mission. I wanted to like really get as many as possible. So I was just single clip and just do as many as I could, basically, all over the city and near schools especially, because when I'd be driving to work and I'd see loads of kids lining up and they're lining up at a pedestrian crossing and this stuff's on there, I was like, I'm doing it.
Mm.
Even while I'm at work, I'm going to quickly take 10 minutes off and go and do it. I can't see that stuff. Anyway, so they were getting taken down all around the city. And there's one particular junction where there were probably 40 or 50 devices in, let's say, a square 200 meters. It was very densely packed with equipment. And I went and did that all in one night. It's quite a busy area and, lots of people getting radiated just without them knowing. And then I went down the next day and the whole place was clear. And I was like, you do get a good feeling when you're like, people are now not being killed silently. And one of my friends did a
Do you
YouTube.
get much support when you're doing it?
Um,
You can't. I assume you can only be invisible to a point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one, right? The amount of people who actually even have the balls to say something, whether they're with you or not, is a surprisingly low amount of people, right? So let's say I climb up 100 lampposts, probably 5 to 10 people saying something. So yeah, you're looking at 5 to 10% of people that
Mm.
see you actually saying something. And I had a couple of people who were just like, "What are you doing?" And I would have my flyers at the ready, the flyers from Save Us Now. It's a great tool because you can just truth bomb them right there on the spot. Check that out, their weapons. I'm helping the people. I'm doing it for you, essentially. And you flip that script immediately
Mm.
because in their head they're going like, "You're destroying my city," and then you go, "No, I'm saving you." So I had a few people like that here and there, but then it was actually after my first arrest that I had more people honking because obviously they'd seen it online. And one bloke, it was yeah, after my first arrest, I was up the top and I acknowledged him because he was looking at me. She's like, "You're right, mate," like that, and he's looking up at me while walking along, and he's like, "Legend." That's all he said. And I was like, I have to acknowledge that he acknowledged me. And I was just like, I do it for all of you. Yeah, exactly. And that
Mm.
was probably 11 o'clock at night. and he's just on his evening walk or whatever it is. So it's really nice when you get that. It's really beautiful because you get it's goosebump stuff because
Well, it makes you feel like you're being appreciated for the risk essentially that
yeah,
you're putting yourself
that's
in.
it. Yeah, it's my time, my energy, and the risk. It's certain risk. I am getting picked up by the police.
Well, not even by the police, but if these things are what you say they are, and you're right up close to them, then
True.
you've got the risk of that itself as well.
For sure. And they can shoot basically backwards. Not all units can, but there is leakage out the back. So I'm going up close to them, and that's another decision that I've had to make. But the motive reason, like why are we doing this? There's obviously many facets to our attack too, which is disabling the units, yeah, creating content so it can go wild online and people can actually see that there's something up and then
Mm.
actually start questioning when they next cross at a crossing, you know, what the hell's this thing? Why is it counting me? Why blah blah blah. So that's probably the most important facet, arguably. Yeah, I'm helping people in my local area. I can't clear the whole country, right? And that's
But you
part of
can
this
bring
call to
awareness.
action. Yeah, raising awareness. 1,000 of us could put the biggest dent in the armor of what's going on, right?
Mm.
It's small numbers. Yeah. The what do they call it? Well, the 100th monkey is basically what I'm pointing at. So like when
Only a
you
hundred
change.
people need to learn it, and then everyone else instinctively knows it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mm.
there's some thresholds in human and actually in the animal world as well. But in any massive population, there are thresholds which have been shown by people like Rupert Sheldrake at Cambridge University, where you teach enough of them one thing, and then even on the other side of the planet, for some reason, the results become better. They learn
Mm.
quicker. He did rat studies, same thing in the UK as in
It's got to be
America,
universal. It's got to be something to do with universal consciousness, doesn't it?
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
And
I
that
mean,
we're all part of it.
exactly. That's you know, as a numerologist, sort of trained with numerology, it's the one and the nine, which is the one is that we're all one and we're individuals as one, but the nine is all. So it's like the
Mm.
all in one and the one in all, you
Well,
know?
if you're a numerologist, which again we're going to segue now,
Yeah,
I always see, and I don't view it as a bad demonic number. I always see 33.
me too.
Always. It
Yeah,
always used to be 66. I always used to see 66 everywhere.
yeah,
And then weirdly, it's halved. And it's
yeah.
what does that mean?
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? Like it means because everybody has their own path, and you're in a different place to me consciously, yeah. And so I can't tell you what it means. The numbers have an inherent meaning behind them. 33 is a master number, 11, 22, 33 in most forms of numerology.
Mm.
But you could also add those together and have a six. These have inherent meanings, which I won't go into too much. But similarly to you, during the scamdemic, I ended up going to Portugal and then eventually to Mexico in search of something. And when I got to Mexico, I was the first
Like a
taxi.
pilgrimage.
Well, it was more like I thought it was just England that was going down the pan, so I was trying to find somewhere
Oh,
safe,
I
let's
see.
say. It was a bit of fear, and eventually it burnt it away, and I was like, oh, it's the same everywhere, and I might as well be back at home, fighting the fight in English because, I don't want to be ending up in court in
Or
speaking
decapitated.
Spanish. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's it. So yeah, like when I was in Mexico, I got off the plane and the number plate of the taxi was 33 and then my room number and it was just like that for months and it got to the point where I wasn't shocked anymore. I went to Costa Rica and this hostel, it had a big massive board of keys and I went in there and I was like, can I have they were doing tents and I was like, can I get a tent please? And they're like, yeah, cool, here's your key number. And I'd said before they'd even given it to me, I was like, it's 33, it's got to be. And they slid it across the table and it was, and I just didn't say anything. And I put it in my pocket and went off. I'm like, what? I've normalized it. It's mad.
That
And
is crazy.
yeah, it is. I would say not only partially, it's the universe telling you something, right? But also at the same time, they leave
What?
their, yeah, yeah.
What?
Oh, well, I think to stand in your truth, to have faith, to remember that you're being supported and watched, and if you want to put it in that dualistic
Hmm.
spectacle of like something's watching me, I don't see it like that anymore. I think, well, I know that I'm
But they're
part of.
also referred to like angel numbers, aren't they? That's another.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Pay attention is usually what they're saying, right? But again, you know. it depends on where you are, who you're with. It might be
Mm.
telling you to watch out for someone or, you know, watch out for malicious actions or whatever. But
Mm.
either way, it's there. And it can be explained away with the left brain by saying, even if you're conspiratorial, they leave their symbols everywhere as well. There's so many 33s all over the place. So is it that our brains are actually learning to see that? And that's the message,
Mm.
which is like, this realm is basically governed by, the prince, the dark prince, let's say, who has his fingers everywhere. And you're like, I'm seeing 33 everywhere because it's the mark, but who knows?
Who
Who
knows?
knows? I actually feel that the Masonic 33 thing, they've actually kind of hijacked it as well.
I'm glad you said that
Yeah.
because I think everything's an inversion, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I truly believe that 666. That's just six carbon elements. That's you. So
Yeah.
we've been taught to demonize ourselves,
Yeah.
essentially.
I mean, it's risky stuff to say almost anything these days, right? You're going to get a bunch of people saying, you're a shill or whatever.
Mm.
But with the numerology stuff, I don't flaunt it much because people get pretty iffy about people who
It's a
look
bit
into this
woo
stuff.
woo for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at numbers, they do have inherent meanings. And
Mm.
just to bring this kind of segue back into the tech, you've got organization called ICNIRP.
Hmm.
ICNIRP create the guidelines on safe values of RF radiation and the use of the electromagnetic spectrum, so to speak. They're 14 or 13 to 15 people who are all basically revolving doors from telecommunications companies and the WEF. Pretty much all of them, yeah. And to get into the crew, you have to be handshaken in by the others. So it's completely closed. So ICNIRP is the International Commission for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection or something like that. They're not international. They're not a commission. It's not about non-ionizing. Like basically the whole name is completely false. And the reason why I bring this up, segueing from numerology, is that they, in their guidelines, they focus pretty much solely on whether or not the radiation heats the human skin.
Mm.
Yeah, if it heats the human skin, then it's causing damage or heats the cells. That's complete garbage, right? Because I do a bit of sound healing. I'm a gongster. I help people heal with the gong. And you can create complete transformations in the body and mind through audible sound. Yeah, so then it comes down to the numbers because there are certain frequencies which are in resonance and certain which aren't. So even in the spectrums of radiation that ICNIRP would say are safe, you can still play with the numbers to make disresonance
Mm.
and
A bit
shape
like a
people's.
bit like when they changed the concert tuning from 432 hertz to 440,
Exactly.
which
They
is a bit
know.
sick as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And they bank on us being unquestioning enough that we
Ignorant.
actually don't think that sound and visual and invisible spectrums of the electromagnetic spectrums are different things. They assume that we're going to assume that they're all different.
Mm.
But of course, it's all one massive spectrum. And so you can create change on every part of that spectrum. And so they're just lying. It's clear, clear as day these days. But so, yeah, that's the thing with numerology, like you said, with the tuning. But, also you've got healing frequencies. So that means that you can have non-healing frequencies as well. And yeah, a lot of, Wi-Fi, they've said that the band that was opened up for the use of Wi-Fi and whatever could have been a bunch of different ones, but was focused on one that happens to be really harmful to not just human life, but most forms of biological life. And then you've got, these studies done by school children where they grow watercress in a Wi-Fi environment and then in a Faraday box. And in the Faraday box, it grows like normal, and in the Wi-Fi environment, it doesn't.
Mm.
So it's not anything more than child's play. To understand that this stuff is harmful, potentially harmful if you're on the fence, but it is 100% being weaponized for sure. You know. Um, yeah. So,
Where do you see us being in like 10 years?
I mean, it's a beautiful question because it's a good thing to iron out. The stuff that I'm talking about might be dark, and I've been down many dark rabbit holes. I've faced a lot of the darkness that the world has to offer me on the internet and so on. But I am so optimistic about the future, especially given my case, you know. And to go back to that case, just to bring it back to answer your question fully, I was for 3 weeks going out every night, disabling units. And then I put out a video online, and in the same day, the media campaign against me began. It was divine timing, you know. I put this video out, it started doing crazy numbers, and obviously their mugshots of me were doing crazy numbers as well. So who is this man with, a CCTV image of me on the Policing Cambridge Facebook
So did
page?
you never at any point have a balaclava on? You weren't ever one of those guys?
Nah,
No?
nah. I mean, from day one, I was,
Fair play.
yeah, stand out in the light, like,
Own it.
yeah, exactly. And own it, especially because I knew I wasn't committing a crime. Yeah.
Mm.
I'll just carry on with my train of thought there, just to not get lost. But 3 weeks later, they put out this media campaign, and I was like, right, I'm getting picked up in 24 hours. And then I was getting calls from people that from my past who were, trying to get the goss, what's going on with you? There's a picture of you in the paper and whatever. And then I'm also getting calls from people that I haven't met before, saying, we're here to support you. Get this ready, that ready. Have you got this? Have you got that? And suddenly it became really real, and my heart's racing, and I'm sitting at my computer even till 11 o'clock that night, writing up all of my statement and getting my evidence together, my folder, making sure I'm ready. A lot of that prep had taken place already. I was 80%, but the last 20 was done in a rush, let's say.
Mm.
And the reason why I say all this is I then get picked up, put in a cell. They're obviously pissed off. They've got plain clothed detective constables, DCs, in my house, which is like not normal. Yeah, they usually have uniforms. Yeah, which are the kind of lower rankings. When you get to detective inspectors and whatever, they're plain clothed. And yeah, they're detective inspectors walking around in the house while I'm in a cell, and they were clearly not happy. It wasn't just somebody's gone out and caused a load of criminal damage. It's like we need to plug these holes in our ship, otherwise we're going to sink, kind of vibe. And they promised me in the interview, we're going to take this to Crown prosecution tomorrow morning. You're going to be in magistrates by the afternoon. You'll be in the nick by tomorrow evening. It was promised, basically. They mic dropped that and they walked out the room. I went back to my cell for an hour and a half, and then bang, the door opens, you're out on bail. No bail conditions. From the door swinging open to me being on Parker's Piece, which is like this beautiful green area outside the police station, kids playing and whatever. From me being in the cell to being out in the sunshine with people, it was like 5 minutes after being in the cell for 18 hours and being promised that I was going to be locked up.
So what changed?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, internally, I knew nothing had changed and I knew that that was going to be the outcome. But still, there's nothing that can prepare you for that level of
Divine
confirmation.
interventions.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. So, this was answering your earlier question about how do you see the future. The moment that I ended up walking home, nothing in my pockets, with my jaw hitting the floor, like that actually just happened. This new wave of optimism was hitting me at the same time, where it's like, we have got this. We've got these people. I'm not saying that everybody's a bad actor, but the rot is prevalent right now in, most institutions,
Mm.
especially authoritative ones, right? So I'm walking home and I'm like, this is world changing for me. If people can get their head round it, it's world changing for the world.
So
You know?
essentially, your 18 hours and how it ended in the cell was your revelation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I already knew it because I'd read all the docs and whatever, but it was ultimate confirmation. I've got like high level, high ranking police officers on my case, the DIs and whatever. They gave it good in the interview. Basically, I just read my written statement, I gave them all my evidence, and then zoop, I'm not saying anything. I don't answer questions, yeah. And you know, they had everything that they needed.
Mm.
Yeah, they had picture evidence, they had physical evidence, whatever. And still they let me out. You know, it's as easy as one,
That
two.
is really baffling because you would have thought at the very minimum they would have tried criminal damage.
Yeah, well, that was what the charge was for. And by the way, criminal damage under 5K is potential slap on the wrist territory. You go over 5K, that's like a switch, basically. So I've been told. I haven't
Mm.
seen that written, but either way, I was on like six figures, and you realize at that point it doesn't actually even matter. You've got Matt Houston and his case. There's probably 10 to 30 times in terms of value what mine is, and they can't put him in court. you know? So this is revelatory, and I hope that the listeners can really understand the significance of me being let out. It's it's an admission on so many levels, right? Partially, it's an admission of Operation Tala because from the moment I was picked up and in the interview, I was not quiet about that. I'm aware of Operation Tala. I'm going to talk about it all the time. Yeah. So one could argue, let's say that they were actually sensors and I was causing mindless criminal damage. Just the mention of that made it difficult for them to prosecute. But then you add in that these are actually weapons and that they know, yeah. And then
Mm.
we've got two counts of being complicit in mass murder and genocide. You know, after all of the complicated research one can do into common law and all that jazz, and it gets really confusing very quickly. The golden goose egg is the people who are trying to do you for anything are accountable for masses of deaths, huge amounts of damage to humanity, crimes against humanity. And so it's
Mm.
like this really is it. This is everything we ever needed to make this happen. And that's why this call to action really is here. The crack in the door has opened. We've got the crowbar in. Let's storm the door. Let's get through there. Let's open this thing up.
It's the biggest that I can think of. call of treason that we've all
Yeah.
endured.
Yeah, exactly. And the biggest opportunity to take down what we know doesn't serve us, right?
Mm,
Like, you don't just go in unprepared and, burn and smash stuff. That's what they were accusing me of doing. But you go in with intention and focus, obviously research. You've got to back yourself. And I don't mean like I've got my folder here. I don't mean like this folder is a carte blanche. I can just hand it over to a policeman and do what I want, right? You have to absorb the information.
mm.
There's a
You have to
lot of
become the information.
exactly. That's it. And like that's where we are in society. There's a lot of paperwork in here, um, pertaining to my case and evidence that I've gathered and whatever. I can tell you that, you know, and this is what the old traditions, which are long forgotten, were all about. Like
Mm,
academics back in the day, they had huge libraries, but they could recall that information. They weren't just there like as a librarian. Yeah, nowadays, people passing exams on AI, it's like you can't see how that's been weaponized. They're turning you into a single-celled organism, you know. So that's a slight,
oh dear. When will
yeah,
it end?
that's it. But um, just like as a warning to anybody who has the balls to actually do something about what I'm saying, I've proven, many others have proven it as well. Matt Houston, Craig Winter, Michael, Michael up north as well. We're not getting put in court. They can't put us in court. They don't want this on the public record. Yeah. It's like simple as that. They can't do it. The detective inspectors after my interview, they must have, I mean, I imagine they went out the room, they called up CPS and they said, right, CPS are famous for doing what they want. They don't need evidence necessarily.
Mm,
They'll get you if they want. You know, wasn't it Starmer was head of CPS and let Savile off with mountains of evidence against him, you know? So when they say CPS, they say, we do what we want, yeah. But the detective inspectors left that room. They must have called CPS and said, right, we've got everything we need. We're going to you in the morning. And they're like, nah, you can't do that. Somewhere down the line, someone batted it back and said, no, you're going to have to deal with this internally, right? And let's say for a moment that those detective inspectors were ignorant, highly, highly unlikely, if not impossible.
mm.
They would be scratching their heads, going like, what's happened to the justice system? We've got this guy, and they've just said, nah, you've got to do something else. We're not taking it on. Yeah. So it's
It does
like,
make you wonder how many cops do sit back and think, what am I doing? What what
yeah, yeah,
what am I doing in this job?
for sure. And I mean, certainly more than ever now, right? Because this is getting so obvious. It's like the the boat is leaving the harbor. You've got limited amount of time to jump back on to the fucking good side. Sorry, excuse my
All right.
French. But you've got a limited amount of time, otherwise you are destined for something pretty dark. I mean, you're already living in a dark world, sort of ignoring all of this, you know, love that we've got to give over on this side.
Mm.
Like I'm not doing this through fear. I'm doing this to show
For the
you.
betterment of people.
Yeah, exactly. So, you've got police in there now who probably are like, oh, you know, and there's this beautiful quote, forget who it's by, probably going to butcher it. But a man will not learn something that his salary depends upon him not learning. Yeah. And so it's clear, ears closed, eyes closed, mouth
See no
shut.
evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Exactly. There's a massive element of that. They've been promised a pension at quite a young age. They're looking forward to, living out their last fifth of their life, happy and with loads of money and whatever. But that is actually what all of this comes down to, right? When you look into it, you've got your Black Rocks, they're taking over local councils, governments by any means, police forces by debt. Basically, we know
Mm.
about the councils being in so much debt that they're all either bankrupt or
And
being.
private organisations.
That's it. So you get them all into debt, and then you make sure that they eat out of your palms, and then you buy them nice shiny police cars and new police stations, which, funnily enough, is happening right now in my area. They're moving out of the old scummy place that I was put in a few weeks ago, and they're going into what looks like a data center out, outside of the city. Funny, it looks like a data center because the future of policing to me looks like weaponry that identifies people and their social credit score and neutralizes them as it sees fit. This
Mm.
is cryptocurrency, right? Like how many good points have you got in your wallet? You know, is it that cryptocurrency that we're given is a red herring, about money and value, when actually the whole system was built on social credit and target acquisition and target annihilation, essentially. These police don't know that they're helping install the police of the future, which will also annihilate them too.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not easy reading. Um,
They are literally trying to turn us into China.
yeah,
And that
exactly.
way. And that's why Greta and all those people, they never attack China
No,
because China's how the elites want everyone else to be.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're very obedient. I'm very much into alternative history, and therefore I don't really like to talk about history like I know.
Hmm.
But what supposedly happened with Mao and whatever, the wiping out of anybody who had the balls to say anything and so on, it makes the best test bed for this kind of tech, right? A lot of people say to me, "Oh, I've been to China. It's actually really nice. It's not the totalitarian dystopia people paint, right?" And it's like, yeah, it's not supposed to be that overt. The bars are supposed to be transparent, but still
Mm.
there. It's geofencing and so on. So, when you see it in England and people are like, "Oh, that's not totalitarian dystopian hardware," it's like, well, yeah, it depends how much of a retard you are, isn't it? You
Well, yeah,
know?
and you've got our Polish friends over here. They recognize the signs because a lot of them still remember
That's
what
it,
it was like in, Gdansk and stuff. And so
for sure.
they do recognize it.
Yeah.
They do
Yeah. I
see it.
mean, I had a funny situation not long ago. I was in a car park filming, just filming some personal videos, and somebody came to kick me out. It was undercover and it was raining, so I just went in this car park. And this English bloke came in and he was really like Jobsworth level, you can't do that in here, you got to get out. He made a right stink of it. And then I ended up going out into the car park and just filming in the rain. And then this Romanian bloke, the head of security, comes up and he was like, he just kicked you out here just to do, is this what you were doing in there? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And he was like, what the hell was he on? You know? And I ended up having a conversation with him, just like what you said. He's like, I remember what tyranny looks like. These people are just, lambs to the slaughter, and they,
Hmm.
they want to bring others with them as a Judas goat. So yeah, I get what you're saying. It's like with the boomers had sort of no idea about what communism looks like. They just heard about it on the TV. I've got Vietnamese family. My wife's half Vietnamese, and they were boat people. And so during this time of tyranny, I've spoken to a few of the Vietnamese. Some of them don't get it, of course, because they came over
Mm.
here and joined the boomer wave. And they're like, it's just cheap houses and mortgages and so on. But one or two of them are like, I know what communism looks like. England is screwed right now. And I'm like, I want to talk to you, at the dinner table or whatever. I'm like, yeah, let's have a chat, you know. I'm always looking out for people whose eyes are open.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's what we need to do. We need to,
Yeah,
that's the only way we can figure out what's going on,
for sure.
really, by knowing what's gone on in the past.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. and it is all there, you know. I say this very often, and you know, I'm impartial because my alternative history, I literally don't know what happened beyond orally spoken generations that I spoke to myself, my grandparents, right? I literally have no idea beyond that. I've got a
Mm.
load of books, but they seem to be dodgy at best. Yeah, and like the one thing that seems pretty certain is that communism and those characters, Lenin's, Stalin's, and Marx's, killed far more than anyone else in human history. And obviously, the rhetoric is like, even with Hitler, it's like he's the worst person on the planet, but a fraction of the deaths. And I'm not saying anything about what I think about Hitler here,
Mm.
but that's a fraction of the deaths in comparison to the other mob, So dodgy stuff, and yeah, I
It
mean,
is
just
dodgy.
yeah, just to get back to it, like, what did that look like back in those times? It looked like NPCs, drones who had lost their brains following orders, like we know in the Nuremberg trials and so on. And so it's like, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
That's all of the historical reading that you can look into, all of the mass deaths and whatever. Don't be that guy who just doesn't think about it and mindlessly goes along killing their brothers and sisters. And that really is what underpins my message here, which is, you know, not only don't be that guy who doesn't think, don't be that guy who doesn't act.
Mm.
Because this
Yep,
beautiful
I hear you.
saying, yeah, like this beautiful saying that I heard from Mark Passio. He's a bit of an inspiration of mine. What on Earth is Happening podcast, beautiful thing. But he says to know and not to act is not to know at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
what's the other saying? The problem with the world isn't the acts of evil within it. It's the good people standing by and not doing anything about it.
absolutely, that's it.
Mm.
And that's that's focusing on the people who are just lethargic and apathetic. But to focus for a sec on those of us who think that we're good people, who are actually reverting to no, they must be censors, they must be good because it's made by the council and the government. That's where the real shame needs to
Mm.
come out, right? Like these,
Definitely.
they are humans. I'm not gonna, they're not just like what do they call them, Ubermensch and Undermensch or whatever. The worthless humans. They're not that. They've got brains. Some of them are really smart and they're in high positions and they didn't get there because they were an idiot. But wake up. Your government just basically forcibly injected
I
everybody.
think they call it Stockholm syndrome
Of course. Yeah, yeah. That's it.
and bet the
But
devil you know.
yeah,
Because and they know this, we will always go, even if it's detrimental to us, our subconscious will always do what it deems as safe. And
yeah,
if
yeah.
it's that, and if that's, oh, well, I'll start again tomorrow. As long as your brain knows where it is, it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, it will just do. And
That's
the
it.
elites know that and they play that to their advantage.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, my education, at A levels, I remember doing psychology and I was being taught about Milgram, the Milgram experiments on authority, where the electric shock one, I won't
Mm,
explain the whole thing, but where essentially because the person was being told, a lot of people would go as far as committing manslaughter slash murder just because they were told by someone in a white coat.
hmm.
And at the time, I'm like, why are we learning this stuff, right? But it's now so
Prevalent.
relevant. Yeah, I'm literally like everything I was taught in their system
Hmm.
taught me about the things that they use to get mass murder done on an industrialized scale,
Yeah, I mean, I
including,
remember, I remember seeing a video not like that, but it was just a social experiment test where there'd be these people in a waiting room. Now, obviously, a lot of them were just actors and they knew what was going on, and
yeah,
they'd randomly stand up and start clapping, and then they'd sit down again.
Yeah.
And over time, the people that weren't aware of what's going on, over time, they started to do it because everyone else was doing it.
Yeah.
And so, and it just goes to show you how easily
For sure.
manipulative
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, you can do these tests just going out into the street and, you know, asking people if they want to play rock, paper, scissors, just random strangers, you can see, how manipulable people are. And of course, narcissists, and trauma mind control victims, they do these things and they do it for their own good,
Mm.
like for the betterment of themselves, they'll go and manipulate others. Now,
Keir
I'm
Starmer.
obvious. What's that?
Keir Starmer.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, when you think there's a picture of him as a child with Jimmy Savile,
yeah, yeah,
so there
exactly.
are no coincidences, are there?
No,
He was obviously traumatized
yeah,
in order
yeah, yeah,
to carry out what he does now.
for sure. I mean, I know for sure, not just from listening to SRA victims and stuff in podcasts. It's a big rabbit hole that I've spent a lot of time going into. Absolutely beautiful people that make it out and find teaching people about it to be their calling, it's
Mm.
incredible. But the story's the same across the board. I was born into it. It was my everything. Like abuse was normal, usually straight from the parents. So it's about breaking those in evolutionary bonds, the mate, what would you call it? The mother maternal bonds, the paternal bonds, and whatever, the looking to your dad for safety, that is what they attack. Looking
Mm.
to your mum to be sustained, that's what they attack. They'll take away your food, they'll slap you around, whatever, and that's conditioning so you can be fed into the club. It's literal child sacrifice, even though not in body, you're
In mind, breaking their spirit.
absolutely.
Mm.
And that's what we're dealing with. Again, they're humans, but it's not up to us to wake that level of broken up. Like all we can do is focus on our local environments and ourselves, most importantly. The internal work is primary for me.
Mm.
I don't really want to go out the house until I've got my sword
Zen.
straight. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, I consider the spine to be the sword, right? It's our weapon. You keep that blade sharp,
Your
you know?
backbone.
Yeah, exactly.
A
And
lot of people need to grow one.
exactly.
And I would add me to that list probably.
Well, but I'm calling to action in this podcast. At the same time, though, we're all in our place, and there is a time for, not non-action because we are always doing stuff. Most of us can't stay still for
Everybody
5
has
minutes.
their own timeline in
That's it.
which
Yeah,
they do what they need to do,
for
I
sure.
guess.
Yeah. But one thing that I would say is that preparation is key, right? Like if you're not ready now to go out and, get nicked, it's fine, right? It's also I promise you that this stuff is real, what I'm saying. Me being here and chatting to you right now is proof enough for me, but not for others.
Mm.
Anyway, if you don't feel like you're going to go out and act in the next 6 months, start getting your evidence list together. Start going on to Save Us Now, for example, onto that Substack and watching those videos and absorbing it. Even if it feels like it's alien information, you can't really, absorb it. You're not scientific minded or whatever. Just keep it in the background for some time and build your pack. Yeah. And the moment where it all gets too much for you and you're like, you know what, I'm sick of this. It's everywhere now. It seems like a prison. It's never too late.
Mm.
Somebody in my comments on a Facebook post said, oh, it's too late. They've already done it. They've already got everything ready. Yeah. And my response to that was, last year was too late. The year before was too late. The year before that was too late. Not with me anymore, mate. I'm not
Mm.
doing it. Like, it's never too late. even if it was in the dystopia that we've seen on these, documentaries or, mockumentaries of the future, because that's not our destiny. Yeah, we're not getting locked up in a digital prison. I tell you now, you
Mm.
know, like, and if you want to be involved, it doesn't mean that you have to go disabling stuff. I've got a brilliant friend of mine who's got one leg. He's not climbing up lampposts anytime soon, but he's spreading awareness like nearly no one I've seen on YouTube. He's just a machine, editing videos all the time, getting it all out there, not caring about any of the censorship subjects and whatever. And that brings me to you. You've put a lot of effort into your show, and you're doing a lot for us, for all of us.
Try to, in my own
Yeah,
little way, but I still don't put me anywhere close as to what you guys are doing out there in the field.
yeah.
You're the
Well,
soldiers.
yeah, yeah. But there has to be someone back at the barracks cooking as well.
Mm.
And so on. It's all part of the bigger picture. And I'm not
We're all little
really
soldier ants
for
doing our
sure.
own little bit in our own little way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
this is
guess.
where it is about
Mm.
consciousness, because you could be just doing your thing, but unconscious of what I'm talking about, or ignorant of it, to have
Mm.
ignored the information. And then therefore you're actually helping the dark forces. Or you can change your consciousness and be like, you know what, I'm hearing what this bloke is saying. I need to start educating myself. And just that change in consciousness means that tomorrow, even though you don't help by actually disabling a unit, that change in consciousness is everything. That's you then bringing it up in conversation and potentially letting six more people know in the next week. And
Mm.
that's the very change in consciousness that the big they, are trying to stop. They want us to not remember that we're supported, in this journey, and that we have, like they have their legions. We've got an organization behind us as well. We might not see it, and it might feel very lonely and whatever, but you need to remember that, anyone that's gone out and taken action with this stuff, I am with you. When you're in that cell and whatnot, thank you. You know, and that's what I was feeling when I was in there. The police station is made to be a place where you're supposed to feel lonely, abandoned, no one's there for you. Yeah, that's the psychological operation of it.
Isolation.
Exactly. And it's a pretty dark hole if you get caught in that and you're not prepared. But when I was sat there in isolation for quite an amount of time, I was sitting there thinking, like, I wonder if my arrest video's been sent. I wonder what the sentiment is. I wonder what people are thinking. And I was really trying to tune into it. I was really just like, can I feel what people are feeling right now? And I got back information. I trusted what was coming back to my body, and it said, we're with you, you know? And we've got to remember that, we
Mm.
can communicate with each other through remembrance. And we remember our ancestors who all died you know at the hands of the same satanic cult, right? Like the Second World War, for example, just about alternative history. D-Day was on the 6th of which month, do you know?
June.
June, yeah, which is the 6th month, and it started at 6 a.m. Yeah, I mean, I know that there's the inversions and potentialities or whatever, but they also use these numbers in their own ways, and it's like they this it's blood ritual, blood
Mm.
sacrifice. They handed our forefathers over and so on, and not anymore.
No, not anymore. It
Not
stops
anymore.
now. Listen,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. I've really enjoyed listening to your journey, I guess,
Yeah.
and all the experiences that you've had. I
Cool.
appreciate you coming on, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish you all the very best for the future. Is there
Thanks,
anywhere
man.
where people can find you?
Yeah. Do you do links underneath the show or
I will
anything?
add anything in the video description.
Yeah. I'll put a link into my Telegram chat. Trust the Silence, it's called. just taking one of their terms and making it my own there. Um, but yeah, also, find Mark Steele, Matt Houston, people like that online. You'll be seeing
Mm.
a lot more content coming out about this because we've got court cases coming up and places where we're going to be getting this out in the public sphere. Um, so yeah, just get involved, start following these accounts, and certainly follow saveusnow.substack, right? Mark's putting out a lot of good information about this stuff. Um, when you watch his videos, just find the documents he's talking about. It's not difficult.
Mm.
Find the title, write it in, go and get that document, read it more fully, save it away on a micro USB or whatever it is, and start building. Because really, it's my call to anybody listening. If you see these things out on your traffic lights, they are harming people. Yeah, me being out here is proving that we've uncovered a weapons system. And if you can get out there, my heart's with you. Go for it.
There you
Yeah,
go. You've heard it here. Thank
yeah,
you for joining me today. Really appreciate it. And I hope everyone watching has enjoyed it as well. Look after yourselves and I'll see you on the next
absolutely.
podcast. Bye for
Thanks for
now.
having me.